After a 5-year wait, Joker, Folie à Deux, the hotly anticipated follow-up to Joker, is finally out in theaters. While the original movie embraced ambiguity, the sequel is less opaque in depicting what is real and what is a figment of Arthur Fleck's imagination.
They're all going crazy for you.
Nevertheless, there are still some things in the film that may leave viewers scratching their heads. Like, for starters, is Arthur Fleck even the Joker? So, let's break down the events of Joker, Folie à Deux, and gain some insights from director Todd Phillips along the way.
Look around! Look at all these people!
Joker, Folie à Deux picks up 2 years after the events depicted in 2019's Joker, with Arthur Fleck incarcerated in Arkham State Hospital while awaiting trial for the 5 murders he's known to have committed. Arthur is routinely demeaned and abused by the Arkham guards, led by Brendan Gleeson's Jackie Sullivan. He's an even more withered shell of a human being than before, and is almost entirely silent for the first half hour of the movie. He doesn't stir to life until he meets fellow inmate Harleen Lee Quinzel, played by Lady Gaga, in a music therapy class. Lee is his biggest fan, and they quickly fall madly in love with each other. From that point on, the movie veers into the realm of musical fantasy, as Arthur dreams of himself as Joker and Lee as Harley Quinn performing together. They do occasionally sing to each other live, but most of the musical sequences are products of Arthur's imagination. Through his relationship with Lee, Arthur comes back to life even as he struggles with the Joker persona his fans, especially Lee, want him to embrace as he heads to trial. Arthur soon learns Lee is actually in love with his Joker persona and not the real him, sowing doubt and bitter disappointment in him after his attorney reveals the truth. Lee lied to Arthur about who she is. She's not from the same working-class neighborhood as Arthur, and she voluntarily committed herself to Arkham and then checked herself out. She's the daughter of a wealthy doctor from the Upper West Side of Gotham and has even studied psychology. Arthur later confronts Lee about these lies when she visits him at Arkham, but she manipulates him back into her good graces after revealing she's pregnant. Whether this is another lie is left to the viewer's interpretation. Lee has moved into his old apartment and says that they will live there together when Joker wins his trial and is freed. Together, she vows,
"We're gonna build a mountain."
Arthur's trial is being televised live. Among the many witnesses called during the trial is Arthur's former neighbor and infatuation, Sophie Dumont, who testifies to the hurtful things his mother, Penny Fleck, would say about her son, that she mocked his dream of being a stand-up comic and even derided the uncontrollable laughter caused by his neurological condition. This triggers Arthur, who then fires his lawyer and declares that he'll represent himself. While Joker cross-examines Gary Puddles, his one-time friend and fellow party clown, he outs his abusers at Arkham live on TV. When Arthur returns to Arkham, the guards beat him up, wash off his makeup, tear off his red suit, and hurt him very, very badly. Arthur is dragged back to his cell where he lies broken in body and spirit while hearing Jackie strangle fellow inmate Ricky to death. Arthur returns to court the next day where he is allowed to make a statement. He says he intended to go on a rant, blaming everyone else for his actions, but finally admits he's fully responsible for what he did. He publicly confesses to also killing his mother and then declares that there is no Joker, only Arthur. Lee, who had come to court in her full Harley Quinn look, is repelled by him rejecting Joker and leaves the courtroom, giving him a withering glance. While the court is in recess, Arthur calls Lee's home and sings to her on her answering machine. The scene then cuts to Lee listening to Arthur's call as it is recorded. She raises a snub-nosed revolver to her head, but the scene cuts back to Arthur. Is this another of his fantasies, or did Lee really commit suicide? Back in the courtroom, Arthur is preparing to face his sentencing when a massive explosion rips through the courthouse, killing many and sending Arthur hurtling toward the jury box. We later find out that one of Joker's supporters set off a car bomb outside the courthouse. Arthur comes to a few minutes later, rattled but largely uninjured. We also see Harvey Dent, who was prosecuting the case, is conscious but almost catatonic from shock, the left side of his face bloodied in a nod to his eventual Two-Face alter ego. Arthur crawls out of the ruins of the courthouse and staggers into the street. Arthur is recognized by a supporter in full Joker cosplay, who drags him away to a cab driven by another supporter wearing a clown mask. The two are gleeful that someone blew up the courthouse. Arthur flees the cab, sprinting away from the two supporters who chase after him, pleading for him to return. As evening comes, Arthur arrives back at his former neighborhood. He ascends that steep set of stairs he famously danced on in the first movie. He sees Lee with a new shorter hairdo. She is distant and cold to him. He says they're now free to start a new life together. Lee calls him Arthur, the first time she's ever called him that in the movie, and says they were never going anywhere, that all they had was the fantasy, and he killed that with his courtroom admission. Arthur, his makeup almost entirely gone, is teary-eyed and says he can't live without her. That they're going to have a baby, she simply says, "Goodbye, Arthur," and leaves as the cops arrive to recapture Arthur.
I'm in trouble.
Sometime later in Arkham, Arthur is back to being the quiet, broken figure he was in the first half hour. The spark of life he had from Lee is gone. He's smoking in the rec room watching TV with other inmates when a guard tells him he has a visitor. As Arthur makes his way down the hall, one young inmate we've seen in the background before approaches him. The young inmate says he wants to tell Arthur a joke about a clown and a psychopath in a bar. The clown is sad and alone. The psychopath says he used to love watching the clown on TV. Can he get him something? The clown says, "If you're buying, then you can get me something." So the psychopath says, "I'll get you what you f***ing deserve," and proceeds to stab Arthur repeatedly in the abdomen with a shiv. As he clutches his bleeding gut, Arthur imagines Joker and Harley on stage together one last time. When he snaps out of it, he collapses to the floor and dies. Behind him, we can make out the young inmate carving a smile into his face using the same shiv that killed Arthur. Arthur Fleck is dead, but it would seem the true Joker is born.
You wanna know how I got these scars?
The thing is, Arthur Fleck was never meant to be the Joker, not the one Batman will battle one day anyway. Director Todd Phillips has long maintained, even back while promoting the first film, he was not looking to make a movie about the clown prince of crime fans know from the comics. And he reiterated that in a recent interview with IGN, telling us the first film is called Joker. It's not called The Joker, it's called Joker. And the first film under the script always said an origin story, never said the origin story. It was this idea that maybe this isn't the Joker, maybe this is the inspiration for the Joker. Phillips said he believes Arthur, quote, died at peace in a way being himself. The kid says to him, "You want to hear a joke?" He's like, "Well, yeah, okay, of course." Because he knows that feeling of wanting to make somebody laugh, so he gives the kid that moment. Obviously, it goes bad because, again, everything goes bad for Arthur, but I think that's such a beautiful moment where it's like Arthur still has hope. He's showing appreciation for the comedy, an appreciation for putting yourself out there, something nobody ever did for him in the first movie in some ways.
Well, who's not?
We also spoke to Joaquin Phoenix, who had this to say about the death of Arthur Fleck. There's a warmth in that scene, which is nice. That's all that I was thinking about that I was after, is here's this young man who's telling me a joke, and he's nervous to tell me the joke. I can tell that he's nervous, and I'm going to hear him out, and it's a pretty good setup. So why did Arthur Fleck ultimately reject his Joker persona? To Phillips, it was that Arthur finally accepted that he couldn't win the proverbial fight against City Hall, saying, quote, "When you're Arthur, you're going to always lose, and corruption will always win."
Well, maybe. You don't know who I really was.
Whether it's the corruption of the prison system guards, the corruption of the judicial system, the corruption of the media, and the way they represent Arthur. But if Arthur Fleck rejected the mantle of Joker, then it would seem that, in the end, Lee Quinzel has fully embraced her Harley Quinn's shadow self, becoming the Joker that Arthur wouldn't allow himself to be. What did you think of Joker 2 and its ending? Let us know in the comments. For more Bat coverage, check out our review of Joker Folie, Deux, as well as our roundtable chat with the cast of The Penguin. And for all things DC, you're already in the right place, right here at IGN.